welcome to the channel. We hope you're all well and looking forward to getting back out towing.
Right, well, if you watched our introductory videos, you will see we've outlined our caravan story over the years. But while we were putting that together, it reminded us of some things that actually happened to us.
Yeah, some things, some funny, some odd, some both. And we thought these might bring a smile or two to you, and a couple of them might even have useful reminders.
Well, we're going to kick off with one that certainly makes me smile. From our intro video, you might remember we spent some time living in Germany and we had lots of caravan trips, and there was one in particular that brought it to mind. George's car, it was his pride and joy. It's a brand new BMW, and we planned a trip to Switzerland. Now, our son was still very young at the time. He was teething with his back teeth, and we were staying at a site in Camping Gottardo. It was beautiful, fabulous mountain views, and it had a bakery on site. So we woke up in the morning to the smell of freshly baked bread. Everything was perfect. Got there, we arrived up, and we were setting up, and I went inside the caravan to make a cup of tea, and we left George outside to finish setting up.
Well, as I was sitting there, we were putting things in and out of the caravan, taking things in and out of the boot, and the boot of course was open, and at that stage our son was just tall enough to be able to look into the boot. And I picked up something and left him for just a moment to go to the caravan, and when I came back there was a large bite mark and a bit of the boot trim from the BMW missing. He must have had a really severe teething pain and chewed on the nearest soft thing to ease his pain. My boot. But he must have liked the taste, because he's got his own BMW now, and at least the guy I sold the car to, well, he said he didn't really mind.
Well, as you know, we returned to caravanning in 2018 after a long gap away, so we had to get used to new developments in caravans. And in one of our first trips, George was setting up outside, and he had got the aquarol all filled and the water pump and everything. And we always tow with no water in the system. We always drains it well before we leave the previous site. So he started the process of filling with water, and he left it to finish while he set up the toilet.
So off I went to set up the toilet, leaving the water tank to get filled. And when I came back after finishing with the toilet, it still wasn't done. It seemed to be taking ages. At one stage I even thought I might need to have a second aquarol. And I was puzzled by this. I really couldn't understand it. And as I was standing there scratching my head, I heard a noise. Running water. So I looked under the van, and there was water draining out of the valve just as fast as the pump was putting it in. I'd obviously left the valve open when we left the last site and forgotten to close it. Now we've got a checklist for leaving and arriving, but the running water is still a standing joke.
One of our favourite places to visit when we lived in Germany was Denmark, and we had several caravan trips there when the children were young, and we really loved it. But one trip in particular was really unforgettable. We'd gone to Copenhagen. We wanted to visit places like the Tivoli Gardens, the Little Mermaid, and all the other interesting places that Copenhagen had to offer. So one day we drove to the harbour area, where it had lots of trendy, busy shops and cafes, etc. And we had a new tow car at that time, and we had to have a tow bar fitted to it. And somebody that we knew recommended this expat Brit who did it. So we thought, well, we'll save some money and we'll get him to do it for us. So we drove to the harbour, and we parked beside this enormous motorhome. And there was this really good looking Italian gent sunbathing on the roof. But this caravan motorhome thing they had was really swish.
It certainly was very big and very swish. And so as we drove into the parking space next to it, and I switched off the ignition, there was a sudden bang, and a lot of smoke came out from underneath the bonnet of our car. Panic. I got everybody out of the car as fast as possible, but even that was not as fast as the Italian guy coming off the roof of his motorhome. But thankfully there was no fire. So we called our European breakdown service, and they sent out an organisation called Falk. Now in Denmark, Falk runs their emergency services such as their ambulance service and their fire service. and two very friendly Danes turned up in the biggest breakdown truck you've ever seen. Huge. Our son's eyes were wide open as saucers. They had a look at the car, but knew they couldn't repair it there and then, and it would need to be recovered. But their truck was far too big for that job, so they sent for a smaller vehicle. In the meantime, we arranged a hire car. Our car was going to be taken off to the dealers for repair, and the two Danish chaps offered to take our kids back to their headquarters, which they were absolutely delighted at, a trip in this big truck.
Yeah.
So once we'd got the hire car sorted out and our car was at the dealers for repair, we joined them there at the Falk headquarters, and they gave us some food, some coffee and a guided tour of their garage. The kids were lucky. They got a great big bag of freebies.
Yeah, I loved
Dad was even luckier.
Yeah.
He got to drive a fire engine. A fire engine!
Big kid.
Never mind Legoland, driving the fire engine was the best memory of the whole trip.
Well, in this little story, it's a reminder of a need to pay attention when you're working with a caravan. So as we said, we were back into caravanning 2 years ago, and we just returned from a trip away, and we got ready and unhitched the car, and we always use the motor mover at that point to put it back on the drive, because our drive has got a bit of a slope to it. One of our neighbours, he was cutting grass, and he'd never seen a caravan motor mover in operation before, so he stopped cutting his grass and he came across to watch. And we got talking, and George, as usual, wasn't paying enough attention.
I really wasn't paying any attention. So as I was unhitching, I freed off the jockey wheel locking handle. But because I was distracted by chatting, I didn't do what I usually did and hold the handle and ease it down onto the ground. Instead, I just let it go, and it dropped right onto my foot.
Ouch.
So there I was, hopping about in pain in our driveway, and our neighbour was not at all sympathetic. He asked if this was part of the normal unhitching routine. I won't tell you what I said in response, but that's something I won't ever do again, believe me.
Well, when we came back into caravan, we had to buy a lightweight caravan that we could tow with the car that we had, because we didn't really want to change the car at that point. So weights and payload were really quite important, and they were really quite tight with the car. So some things we had to carry in the car, like all the heavy items, and one of those was the fire extinguisher. And we put it in the caravan as part of the setup once we got on site. Well, this time we were on a Scottish trip in our first summer after we got the van, and we travelled to Bunree, and we'd been dying to go there and stay there ever since we'd seen it on a YouTube video. Well, we arrived, sun was shining, it was a great pitch, and we were next to the water's edge.
Yep. Glorious views, summer day, everything was right with the world.
Yeah.
Perfect. Until we unlocked the caravan. And the inside looked like Pompeii after the volcano struck. There was white dust everywhere, in every surface, every corner. I'd left the fire extinguisher in the caravan by mistake. It'd fallen over and been triggered, and it coated everything in this fine white powder. Everything. Luckily there was no other damage, but we spent the best part of the next 2 hours cleaning up. So after those 2 hours, the caravan looked absolutely perfect, spick and span, but we looked like two ghosts by the time we were finished. So that's something we'd never do again.
Yeah.
Always make sure that your fire extinguisher is safely secured.
Yep.
Before we close this video, just a little mention of something. We had planned a video on choosing a caravan using our caravan comparison tool that we've developed. But as we were preparing the information for that video, it became clear just how much there was. Obviously far too much for one video. So it's an important thing to do, so we want to do it properly. So rather than skimp on it, we're now replanning that for a pair of videos, so you can expect to see something more on that in the near future.
Yeah, well, thanks for watching. We hope it might have brought a smile to your face, and it's certainly been a reminder for us. So if you have any advice, comments, questions, do it in the normal YouTube fashion. Also use Facebook, Twitter, email. You'll find the details at the end of this video. And maybe you could send us any stories that you have of odd things that have happened to you. Might make us feel a bit better.
You certainly might. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you've seen today, please consider striking that like and share button, and also possibly subscribing to the channel. If you want to know when the next one is ready to view, then ding that notifications bell icon and it will let you know. And we look forward to receiving any of your stories that you can send us. So we'll see you next time. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, keep calm and caravan on. For now, it's cheerio from the Macs. Bye.